What's going on, guys, and welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for May 31st, 2024. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. Pretty decent edition, I thought, of SmackDown on Friday night, coming out of King and Queen of the Ring last weekend as we head on into Clash of the Castle, our next pay-per-view coming up in just 2 weeks actually from today. They have another 3-week period in between pay-per-views. This was the case between Backlash and King and Queen of the Ring. That is going to be the case between the last pay-per-view and then Clash of the Castle, and then again between Clash of the Castle and Money in the Bank. So they have a lot of, and then finally it's back to a 4-week period between Money in the Bank and SummerSlam. Now, a 1-week difference might not be that big of a deal between the build, between these pay-per-views. 4 weeks to me is kind of the sweet spot. I mentioned that before. 3 weeks can kind of be a little bit rushed. We saw that with Logan Paul and Cody Rhodes. It ended up being fine in that case because Cody Rhodes doesn't really wrestle on TV all that often anyway. Logan Paul never really wrestles on TV aside from that one match on SmackDown in like January or February. So that ended up being okay. But we have another 3-week build until Clash of the Castle. The kickoff to the next Cody Rhodes challenger on this show, that being AJ Styles, pulling a Mark Henry in the main event, who just left AEW, by the way. His contract expired earlier this week. A lot of contracts expiring in wrestling right now. Mark Henry leaving AEW earlier this week. AJ Styles kind of pulling a Mark Henry on Cody Rhodes in the main event. Mark Henry might not be back in WWE, at least not yet anyway. Not as a wrestler. I would assume if they do pick him up, it would be as like a agent or maybe a talent scout, something in that capacity. Pulling a Mark Henry and Cody Rhodes in the main event segment, and it was greatly executed too. Very obvious, pretty obvious what was going on there as soon as AJ walked out in that fucking blue powder suit. And he had the OC out there who didn't really do anything per usual. I guess that was fitting for the OC. They don't do shit. But you knew exactly where it was going. It was a great segment. They're kicking back up Cody and AJ again, which is totally fine by me because that last match at Backlash was outstanding. It was an excellent match. Their feud going into that show wasn't all that special. It was solid, but it wasn't anything great. But now we're kind of rekindling that rivalry with a great segment on SmackDown, I thought. Not a whole lot else from this SmackDown. I thought the Owens and Heyman segment was really, really good. Some decent matches. Really nothing out of the ordinary about the show overall. But it ended up being a perfectly solid show, I thought. So let's kick it off here. We open up the episode with Nia Jax, or Coronation, as the Queen of the Ring. And as I've said before, I really don't hate the idea of Nia Jax being queen as much as I thought I probably either would have, maybe not when it started, but I probably would have been fine with it when it started 3-4 weeks ago, the tournament that is, and she was announced as a contestant in the tournament. I probably would have hated the idea a lot more 9 months ago when she first came back to the company, because I had no desire to see Nia Jax back in WWE to begin with. But she really has, as I said before, has exceeded expectations in terms of her ring work. The mic work still isn't great. This was not a great promo by her. She really doesn't cut many great promos. She's not a great... she doesn't have a great delivery. She's not a great actress. So the promos are kind of her Achilles heel. But her in-ring work is definitely improved. And her booking is certainly improved as well. Because she really hasn't lost a whole lot of matches. She's lost a few matches to Liv Morgan, Becky, and Rhea. The Becky match was a last woman standing match. The Liv match was kind of a fluky-ass finish, and that match wasn't all that great. About a month ago on Raw. And then to Rhea Ripley, obviously, at Elimination Chamber in Australia. Beyond that, she really hasn't lost all that much. And she beat 3 notable names, actually 4 if you include Lyra in the finals, to win the crown. So Nia's got the momentum right now. I don't really know what you do with her until SummerSlam. Bayley attempted to confront her here before being attacked by Chelsea Green and specifically Piper Niven. Back to them later. We didn't get a whole lot of interaction between Nia and Bayley. Chelsea said, Nia, this is what you have to look forward to at SummerSlam, because if you win the King and Queen of the Ring, you get a World Championship match at SummerSlam at the champion on your brand, the World Champion on your brand. You can't, choose. It's not really like the Royal Rumble where you can choose to go to Raw like Cody Rhodes chose Roman Reigns and went to SmackDown. Doesn't really work like that, apparently. So it will be Nia Jax versus whoever the Women's World Champion is come SummerSlam, and we have no reason to think it'll be anyone other than Bayley. The SmackDown Women's roster has some solid names. I just don't see anyone else beating Bayley for that belt before Nia probably will at SummerSlam. So I thought this was fine. Like I said, I don't know what you do with Nia in the meantime. Maybe she can feud with Nia, or Nia can feud with Bianca and Jade perhaps. She beat them both in the tournament. She beat Jade by disqualification, and she beat Bianca clean, I think, in their first ever one-on-one encounter. I know they're the current women's tag team champions. She wouldn't necessarily be going for those belts. Maybe she can be kept busy with them, perhaps. Maybe Naomi. I mean, again, she's already beaten her too. Naomi doesn't really have a whole lot going on. She doesn't win a lot of matches. She would not be beating Nia Jax, I wouldn't think, if they want to keep Nia strong before SummerSlam. I'm not really sure, but this did serve to set up the tag team match later on in the show with Piper Niven and Chelsea Green taking on Bayley and her partner, Naomi, who she chose. And she wanted to get her hands on Piper and Chelsea after they laid her out here, so that was why that match happened. More on that later, though. We had Tommaso Ciampa taking on one half of the WWE Tag Team Champions, Austin Theory. Good match here. I enjoyed this for what it was. They got some time. They had the quality contest they're capable of. Nothing like too thrilling, but it was a very well-wrestled match. Ciampa winning kind of off of some dissension from Theory and Waller, which was kind of random. And I know someone's going to say, oh, well, it's, they've teased tension here and they've teased tension there. And, I've even been asked about like a potential split between the two. The problem is they just became tag team champions 2 fucking months ago. Why would you split them up? And I'm not even really sure who would you turn babyface. Like, both guys are kind of the quintessential heels. So I would not split them up. I wouldn't even bother teasing tension. I think that's just fucking lazy. They probably just wanted an excuse to have Ciampa win. I don't know why they just couldn't have him win clean. But Ciampa wins here. They're clearly building towards Ciampa and Gargano DIY getting a WWE Tag Team title shot at some point in the near future. They're doing Johnny Gargano versus Grayson Waller next week. So they could do it at Clash. I wouldn't do it at Clash. Maybe Money in the Bank. I think Money in the Bank would be perfect because Toronto was really behind DIY. Granted, this was almost a decade ago. But they were really behind DIY when they were in NXT in that amazing Toronto tag team match against the Revival. And that was where they became NXT tag team champions. And Triple H knows that because he was booking at that point in NXT. So I think to do the match there would be great. And then you have Theory and Waller finally drop the titles to DIY at SummerSlam. That's what I would do. I would have DIY finally win the belts at SummerSlam in not their hometown. It would be more so Gargano's hometown of Cleveland. But that's what I would do. So stretch this out for a little bit longer. SummerSlam's in 2 months anyway. I think they can get away with that. They got to make the feud a little bit more interesting. I mean, the simplicity of just Waller in Theory teasing tension is enough, and it's random anyway because I don't think they're splitting up right now, and I don't think they should. They just split up the tag team titles. They need tag teams. I feel like Waller and Theory would get lost in the shuffle on their own right now anyway. But, at least we're building towards that tag team title match. There was that. Andrade, his first match back on SmackDown in over 5 years. He was drafted to SmackDown about a month or so ago. He's finally back on the Blue Brand wrestling last night. Now, he hasn't really shown up on SmackDown at all since being drafted because he wasn't in the King of the Ring tournament. Now, I was going to say, why not? But, I thought they did a decent job of filling out the King of the Ring tournament on SmackDown. It's not like they had any bums in there. They had Baron Corbin in there, and I like Corbin a lot. I guess they wanted Hayes to beat Corbin. I guess Corbin's a babyface. That's what I got out of that match with Hayes a few weeks ago. We have not seen Corbin on SmackDown since, which is a bummer because I like Corbin. But my point is, Andrade, there was not enough spots, I guess, to put him in the King of the Ring, and they didn't want him to lose. So, if fucking Angelo Dawkins was in there, but again, I guess they didn't want Andrade to lose because Angelo was bumped in the first round. So Andrade's back. He's in a weird spot, though, because, like I said, I don't know if they don't want him to lose or Andrade himself doesn't want to lose. I kind of got that sense from his AEW run a little bit. So he's kind of in a weird spot where they don't really have a whole lot for him, but they don't want him to rack up many, if any, losses. So he took on Apollo Crews here, and the funny thing about this match was that this was Andrade's first match back in the company, period, first singles match when he went to Raw shortly after his return in the Rumble. His first singles match back was against Apollo on Raw, and he beat him there too. This was more competitive than I thought. I don't think they're going to do shit with Apollo. They have not in years now. I'm honestly kind of surprised he's still on the roster, to be honest with you. He's a great dude. He's very talented. I don't want to see him get released, but it's pretty clear they've had no plans for him in a while. They drafted him from NXT back to the main roster about a year ago, and I thought his NXT run was very good. He didn't do jack shit on Raw. He was a mainstay on main event, and he was good there working with like the younger talent, the NXT stars that are still in NXT. That's what they do on main event. But it's clear they have no actual plans for him. So, it's nice that he's there working with people like Andrade, but I kind of fear the same thing for Apollo that I do for Giovanni Vinci, where at some point they're just going to be like, yeah, we have no plans for you. Like Cameron Grimes. Cameron Grimes was great. He was called up only a year ago, and then he got cut, which was weird. Because they didn't really give him a chance to shine at all. It's like, at least Apollo's been here for almost a fucking decade, you know? He's been here for a decade. He's had some success as a former, United States champion, Intercontinental champion. Someone like Cameron never really was given a chance to do anything. Giovanni Vinci even has been with this company for a long time. Anyway, I thought this was what it needed to be, a little bit longer than I thought it would be with Andrade. Taking a little bit longer than I think he should have to beat Apollo, since they're not doing jack shit with Apollo. But at least Andrade has direction, all right? So, because they had Angel from Legado out there trying to help Andrade win. I think he did inadvertently. I don't think Andrade wanted the assistance. But they're kind of asking his, they're inviting him to join Legado. And they even said, like, hey, despite what happened going into Mania where you turned on us, because they offered him an invitation to join then, and then he said no, and then he faced him at Mania. It was Santos and Dominic, and then him and Ray beat Santos and Dominic. It was a good match, pretty forgettable, but it was a good match. But now they want him to join again. So they're going back down this rabbit hole of wanting to have Andrade join. Judgment Day wanted him to join, and now Andrade wants... I guess he's very popular, because all these groups want Andrade to join their stables. I don't really know why, because he doesn't really wrestle all that much, and I like Andrade, but he really hasn't done much since coming back to the company. But at least he won here. So we'll see where it goes. And honestly, if it leads to an Andrade-Santos match, both guys need wins. But at least the matches, are going to be fucking great, I think, if given enough time to do what they're capable of. So I'm kind of okay with that. Like I said, I wanted to mention this. This was his first match in over 5 years on SmackDown. I look back to see, because I'm curious, when was the last time he wrestled on SmackDown? When he left the company in 2021, he was on the Raw roster at that point. He had been on Raw for a while. In 2019, he was drafted there. And he stayed there in 2020. He actually went undrafted in the 2020 draft. He went undrafted, and that was why he got released. Not because of that specifically, but it was pretty clear they had no plans for him. Because, why would you have Andrade go undrafted? That makes no fucking sense. He never appeared again on TV, and then he disappeared and asked for his release and got it in early 2021. But, like I said, I think the last match that he had on SmackDown specifically was in 2019. In September, I think against The Miz, if I'm not mistaken. Because at that point, he was still on SmackDown. Not doing a whole lot, but he was on SmackDown in 2019. We had Kevin Owens in the ring with Paul Heyman, who confronted Owens. Owens was already out there. You had Heyman interacting with Solo Sikoa backstage beforehand, kind of talking about the danger of the Bloodline and Heyman being afraid of what they're capable of. And I think Heyman's been the MVP of this whole angle. That kind of goes without saying, but he's done an amazing job of making the new Bloodline feel fearsome and intimidating, and like he doesn't really want to mess with them. Unlike the original Bloodline, and he was afraid of Roman Reigns, but he wasn't acting the way that he was then that he is now. So I thought this exchange was great. He kind of illustrated that same point to Owens, you don't really know who you're messing with here, and Owens was like, listen, dude, I've been dealing with the Bloodline for 4 fucking years now, which I feel bad for Owens for, because he really hasn't gotten one over on the Bloodline at all. Aside from that one Night of Champions tag team title win over Roman and whoever it was, I think it was Solo was his partner. He has not beaten the Bloodline whatsoever. He lost the War Games at least once. He lost the Roman friggin' 4 times in those world title matches at the Rumble. I think they had 3 Rumble matches, or one was in 2017, but they had 2 of them between 2021 and 2023, and he lost both, including matches on SmackDown and TLC. He's lost to Roman Reigns a lot, is my point. So you would think that he really wants to escape the Bloodline here. But it was a really good segment, I thought. It was one of the highlights of the night. So he ended up being backed up by the Profits, who had a match anyway with the Bloodlines, Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. Really good match. Not a really good match here. It was a decent match. But it was really good to see the Guerrillas of Destiny back in the ring together. We have not seen the Guerrillas of Destiny together in a while. I don't follow New Japan all that closely at all. But to my understanding, they were not teaming together when they left New Japan. So, they both left New Japan in the last couple of months in 2024, because I know Tangaloa was there earlier this year. Tama Tonga was there back in January. So they weren't there for all that long before they came on over to WWE in 2024, that is. But I think they were doing their own thing in singles competition. I think it's been at least a couple of years since they last teamed up. I know they were in TNA teaming up maybe 2 years ago. They probably did some New Japan stuff after that, but it's been a bit, so it was nice to see them back in the fold. They're a nice addition to the tag team division. Again, nothing really out of the ordinary about the match, but it was well wrestled. Gave the Bloodline, specifically the GOD, a win, and it was what it needed to be. Obviously, they did not bring in the old GOD tag team theme. Again, I don't really follow New Japan, but I know their tag team theme was fucking fire. In New Japan, they were not going to use that song. They're not the Gorillas of Destiny. I get it. But same names, everything. They are still Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. Slight spelling difference with Tonga Loa, but I think it's Tama Tonga, and then, or because his name in New Japan was Tangaloa, Tanga. Now it's Tonga to kind of go with Tama Tonga. That makes sense. Slight spelling difference, but beyond that, they are basically Gorillas of Destiny. They're just not being called that. I think it would be cool if they were. If they could use that, like they're the hit squad of the Bloodline. I think that'd be fucking cool. And then use the theme, but they're never going to use the theme, so it is what it is. The next match was also a tag team match. Chelsea Green and Piper Niven beating Bayley and Naomi in tag team action. Again, another decent match, nothing great. The top takeaway here was that the heels won. I'm glad they won. They need the win because we are getting, it was confirmed later on, Bayley and Piper Niven for the WWE Women's Championship at Clash. Now, that seems like a weird match on paper because it's like Piper and Niven's not really a threat. We know Bayley's winning. But the big difference maker here is that Piper Niven is Scottish. She is from Scotland. And that pay-per-view is going to be in Scotland. So it's really cool they're giving her an opportunity to shine on that show, and they're not just doing it on SmackDown. I said that last week. I felt like there was a chance they would just do that match on the SmackDown before the pay-per-view, because that will also be in the same arena the night before Clash of the Castle. But they're not doing that. They're actually doing the match on the pay-per-view, which is smart because they're probably not having Liv Morgan defend her championship on that show. She just beat Becky Lynch on Monday. I assume Lyra's probably next in line for Liv, but why rush into that at that pay-per-view? I feel like it makes more sense to, have that simmer and kind of do that match a little bit later on down the line and have Bayley and Piper Niven on Clash of the Castle instead. So it wasn't Piper who picked up the win here, and it wasn't Bayley who she pinned. It was Chelsea pinning Naomi, which was interesting. You don't need to have Bayley get pinned, but Piper did most of the work, as she usually does, and had Chelsea Green pick up the victory, which is fine. But maybe they wanted to set up Naomi versus Chelsea Green first next week on the show and then have Naomi beat Chelsea and then lose to Piper. They probably want to do all the mix and matches of the matches they can do. They already did Bayley and Chelsea, so they just want to drag it out that way. Because they only have 2 SmackDowns left. They have this coming week and the week after that. That's probably why they did what they did to kind of drag it out a little bit more. I feel bad for Naomi continuing to rack up losses, but, she's over. She's established. She's not really someone they're going to build around anyway. And I like Naomi. That's not a knock against her. But she's not the person they're going to put the belt on and build the entire division around. So I was fine with her losing here because it made more sense for her to lose than either Chelsea or Piper, or at least Piper, because she is challenging for the championship at Clash. Doesn't really feel like a threat. Bayley's going to win, but I'm glad Piper's getting that opportunity. It should be a decent match. The main event segment, like I mentioned earlier, AJ Styles out there teasing retirement, pulling a Mark Henry and Cody Rhodes. They had this whole thing throughout the show, hyping this up, because they didn't really advertise this coming into the episode. We just had that promise from AJ last week that, hey, gonna have to make an announcement on my future because I was told I'm at the back of the line. I don't have enough time to go to the back of the line and earn another opportunity. So he got pissed at that, obviously, took that personally from Nick Aldis and said, fuck that, and attacked Cody Rhodes. And that's exactly what happened. Basically, the gist of the segment was that he attacked Cody Rhodes. He did milk it for all it was worth. I'm sure there were some people in the building that bought it. It got a great reaction. It was greatly executed. It was kind of obvious he wasn't actually retiring. I mean, AJ said before retirement is on the horizon, but this would have been a week away for him to go out. And he said, that last match with you, Cody, would have been, my perfect final match. But it wasn't his final match. He wrestled the following Friday into Randy Orton, and he lost to him too. So it was not his final match. It would not have been his final match if he did call it quits here. So they're having at least one more match. Honestly, it would be cool if AJ won the belt for a little bit. I don't think that's going to happen. They probably don't want to interrupt Cody's reign, and that's totally fine. But I would be totally cool with AJ winning the belt for at least a month before losing it back to Cody at SummerSlam. They split wins. I feel like that'd be cool. At the very least, they can, have AJ maybe win by DQ, do a bit of a fuck finish, because we know that match is not headlining Clash of the Castle. If they are doing it on that show, and I think they could just wait until Money in the Bank, to be perfectly honest with you, because they probably want Cody on every PLE, they could easily have that match just happen at Money in the Bank. and they can have AJ do a fuck finish because, again, it's not the main event. Drew and Damian is definitely main eventing that show for the World Heavyweight Championship. That was already, not that it was the main event, but they already announced that match back at King and Queen of the Ring. So I'm glad they're going back to this. Their last match was great. They obviously work really, really well together. It's a great use of AJ Styles. It was just funny seeing him. I think the funniest thing about the segment, the fact that it was executed great was cool. Cody playing his role well, making him out to look like a dumb babyface, but what else is new? He's not always being made out to look dumb, but he was pretty dumb here for not seeing through AJ and seeing it coming. But then that wouldn't have made the angle as good, so I understand why they did what they did. But the funniest part about the whole thing was that you had Gallows and Anderson out there doing nothing, per usual. They've been back in the company now for 2 years, again, doing fucking nothing. They've been in NXT for the last few months, also appearing on SmackDown, but they've largely been relegated to NXT, which is a nice little place for them to be, I guess. Also doing nothing there until recently. They're going to be challenging with the NXT Tag Team titles at that Battleground show next week, and they could very well win. I don't really think they need to. Axiom and Nathan Frazier just won the belts like a month or two ago. But I guess they could win the tag team titles because I don't think they're winning the tag team titles on the main roster. So if they want to tease, the OC could be all gold again like they were 5 years ago. I mean, yeah, possibly. And the funny thing is they were all champions 5 years ago, but for like a month. The OC became Raw Tag Team Champions and immediately lost those belts to like Rollins and Braun Strowman. Something incredibly fucking stupid. But again, they didn't do anything here either. Even when AJ dropped the boom on Cody and attacked him at ringside and did the Styles Clash off the steel steps for added height, that was cool. OC just stood there. They didn't even help him out. So they're clearly back together. But the funny thing is they've taken this abuse from AJ, whether it was, I guess you could argue, it was the plan the whole time, brother. Like, no, it wasn't, because this went on for months where they would try to like get him back in the ranks of the OC and get him back to being the old AJ, and he just blew them off constantly. Michin is still talking about AJ, and they haven't really had them interact at all. Like, she'll probably branch off on her own now. Maybe she'll turn heel too. I guess, but probably not. She wasn't out there at the end of the show with the rest of them. But they've just taken this abuse from AJ, and they have not done shit about it. They've just let AJ walk all over them while they just stand in the back looking like morons. And the OC was basically no more. And then all of a sudden they just reunite with them. Probably because they know AJ Styles' in storyline is their meal ticket. AJ Styles is their meal ticket. He's the only reason why they're even on this show. If it wasn't for AJ, they probably wouldn't be on the main roster at all. They're not being released. I think Triple H probably brought them back for a lot of money because he felt bad with the way they were let go 5 years ago. But they just simply serve no reason. They simply serve no purpose on the show at this point. It was just funny seeing them out there and not do shit. Maybe they will next week. We'll probably get Cody Rhodes and Carl Anderson before Clash or Money in the Bank or whatever. But I just thought that was funny. Overall, though, I liked the show. Again, not a great show, but I thought the two top segments delivered, with AJ attacking Cody, a great way of going off the show. And the Owens and Heyman stuff was also very, very good as well. The rest of the show is pretty standard stuff. They set up the WWE Women's Championship match for the pay-per-view, building towards a future tag team title shot. Andrade and Santos is coming. We are getting Angel and Apollo Crews next week, because Apollo blamed Angel for the loss on the show. I assume Angel's probably winning that match. But yeah, that's happening next week. The Bloodline stuff is progressing, and yeah, it is what it is. And we also found out, too, I forgot to mention this in a backstage segment, we had Knight and Carmelo Hayes interacting again. They're clearly building towards a match. They were involved in that six-man tag team match together last week. That Knight and Profits beat A-Town Down Under, and Carmelo Hayes in six-man tag team action. But we also saw Knight, Logan Paul was not on the show, but we also saw Knight confronting Nick Aldis backstage. And by the way, the AJ thing, I was hoping he would kind of sort of retire so he could show up in TNA soon, but that's not obviously happening. I guess it still could, but probably not too likely. I think it could lead to a match with Nick Aldis, by the way. I forgot to mention that. I think if Cody beats AJ again and they split wins, or he just beats him clean, whatever, we could see Nick Aldis in AJ Styles at SummerSlam. I feel like that'd be fucking cool. I don't know if he's going to be cleared by that point, because he underwent, he tore his bicep or something. I don't know. Not too long ago. It was weird, when he obviously got injured while they were training or some shit. I don't know when it was. But I don't know how soon he's going to be cleared. But I think if we get Styles and Nick Aldis at some point, because that was Nick Aldis's, or AJ's last match in TNA, actually. So for him to be Nick Aldis's first WWE opponent would be pretty cool. But like I was saying, we had Nick Aldis and Knight backstage. Knight made it pretty clear he wants the United States Championship, so he explicitly said it. They are building towards it. The face-off with Logan Paul 2 weeks ago backstage on the show was not an anomaly. They are building towards that match, and thank fucking God, not a week too soon. Now, they might be saving it. They should not do it at Clash. They might be saving it for SummerSlam, and that would be okay. That's where Logan Paul is from, so it would be weird if he was on that show losing the belt, but I guess they could have him lose it beforehand and do a rematch, or they could just do the match there, the first match on that show. Regardless, at least they're going towards the match, and hopefully it is LA Knight that will beat Logan Paul for that belt, because he has been owed a run with that Star-Spangled Prize for a while now, and to wait any longer while LA Knight is still really hot but not really doing anything would be dumb. So, at the latest SummerSlam, earlier than that would be fine too. But like I said, thought SmackDown was a solid show on Friday. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.